Let me guess. You think your money's doing fine. It's sitting in some account, some fund, quietly growing, and you don't really think about it, right? Yeah, that's exactly what they're counting on. Because right now, today, there's a decent chance you are hemorrhaging money out of a hole you can't even see. Not in a crash, not in some stock that tanked, just a tiny number. So small, it looks like a typo. And that tiny number could quietly swallow more than the price of your house before you ever retire. And the worst part, the people charging it are betting you'll never do the math. So let's do the math, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact number to look for, why the smartest people on Wall Street can't beat a fund that does absolutely nothing, and the one 5-minute move that could put an extra 100 grand back in your pocket. Okay, so say you've got 100 grand invested, and you're paying 1% a year in fees. 1%. Sounds like nothing, right? Who even cares about 1%? Well, here's who cares. Over 30 years, that 1% doesn't cost you 30,000 bucks. It costs you more like 170,000. Gone. Because every dollar you hand over in fees is a dollar that never gets to grow. And it's not just the fee either. It's all the growth that fee would have turned into, stacking up year after year after year. That's the part that really gets you. Now flip it around. A decent index fund charges you, what, 0.03%? So on that same 100 grand, you're paying like 30 bucks a year. Not 1,000, 30. So just sit with that for a second. You could be paying a house's worth of money for advice that, and this is the genuinely crazy part, usually does worse than if you just sat there and done nothing at all. And the whole time, it feels good. Feels like you're on top of things, being responsible, managing your money. And meanwhile, those fees are just sitting there in the dark, quietly eating your retirement. And almost nobody does this math until it's way, way too late. So let me tell you where I'm getting all this, because I really don't want you just taking my word for it. Everything I do here, it comes from the real sources, the fund documents, the filings, the long-term data. I'm not making stuff up or just telling you how I feel about it. And the big one today is this thing called SPIVA. Let me actually explain what that is, because this whole video kind of leans on it. So SPIVA stands for S&P Indices versus Active. It's basically a report, and it's put out by S&P Dow Jones Indices, which, get this, is the same company that runs the S&P 500 in the first place. And a couple times a year, they do this really simple thing. They take all the professional funds, the ones with an expert in there picking stocks, and they line them up against a plain, boring index. And they ask one question: did the expensive pros beat the boring one? Yes or no? They've been doing this for about 20 years, and it's pretty much the definitive scorecard on whether picking stocks even works. And every single year, it comes back saying the same thing. The same uncomfortable answer. But hang on, because that answer is the good part. All right, so here's the first thing almost everybody gets totally wrong. When you buy an index fund, you are not buying a stock. You're buying a little sliver of hundreds of companies, sometimes thousands, all at once in one shot. So an S&P 500 fund holds the 500 biggest companies in America: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, all of them. You make one purchase, and you own a little piece of every single one. Here's how I actually think about it. Instead of betting on one horse, you own a little slice of every horse in the race. So you don't have to pick the winner, you just need the race to keep going. And it always has. The market's climbed over every 20-year stretch we've ever recorded, through crashes, wars, recessions, all of it. So that's your first takeaway. One fund, and you basically own a piece of the entire American economy. That's your foundation. That's where you start. But okay, if it's really that easy, why do the pros mess it up? These people getting paid an absolute fortune. Oh, that's where it gets good. So real quick, before I tell you, what's your gut say? Out of all the professional fund managers on earth, what percent do you think actually beat the market over 20 years? Just pick a number in your head. Whatever you picked, it's probably way too high. So here's what that SPIVA report found. Over 20 years, around 90% of these professional, actively managed funds fail to beat the boring index. 90%. Just sit with that for a second. These are people with degrees from Harvard, Yale, wherever. They've got the Bloomberg terminals, the teams of analysts, the whole machine. And 9 out of 10 of them lose to a fund that thinks about absolutely nothing. So why does that keep happening? 2 reasons, really. The first one's the fees. They're charging you 1% or more, and that just drags on them every single year, no matter how brilliant they are. The second one, and honestly, almost nobody gets this, it's just math. See, all the active managers, if you add every one of them up, they basically are the market. They're all trading against each other. So as a group, they literally cannot beat themselves. That's impossible. They're the ones setting the average in the first place. And then, on top of that, they yank their fees out. So as a group, they're pretty much guaranteed to finish behind. So think of it like a poker table, where everyone's playing roughly the same hand. But only some of the players have to pay a fee every single round. Play long enough, and the ones paying the fee lose every time. That's not bad luck. That's just how the math shakes out. So, takeaway. Paying more for the expert usually buys you a worse result. The cheap thing wins. And I know, that sounds completely backwards. It's also one of the most useful things you will ever hear about money. Okay, so if being cheap is the whole game, how cheap can you actually get? And how much does it really, truly matter? So you can't control the market, can't control crashes, recessions, any of that. There's really just one big lever you can pull, and it's what you pay. So picture 2 people. They both put in $500 a month for 30 years. They both earn the same 8%. Everything about them is identical. Except one thing. Person A's fund charges 1%. Person B's charges 0.04%. Same money going in, same market, same everything, just the fee's different. And 30 years later, Person B walks away with about 100 grand more than Person A. Same effort, same deposits, same returns. The only difference? One of them stopped leaking fees every single year. So no, that's not a rounding error. That's years of your life. Just hand it over for nothing. So here's what you actually go do today. Before you buy any fund, find one number. It's called the expense ratio. If it's under 0.1%, great. If it's over 0.5%, you need to start asking some pretty hard questions about why. Okay, so by now you're probably getting it, but this is exactly where everybody freezes up. Which fund do I actually buy? So let's just kill that problem right now. Oh, and real quick, if any of this is clicking for you, that's the entire point of this channel. Just the numbers, without all the noise. So hit that subscribe button, and the next one like this actually shows up for you. Okay, the part people really get stuck on. So the fund menu, it looks completely overwhelming. On purpose, honestly. Thousands of choices. The whole thing's designed to make you feel like there's no possible way you could do this without paying somebody. But you can. To build a solid base, there's really only 3 kinds worth knowing. The first kind's a total US market fund. Owns basically every American company, big and small. Most diversification you can get at home, all in one fund. The second's a total international fund. That's everything outside the US. So you're not betting your entire future on one single country. And the third's a total bond fund. This one's steadier. It softens the blow when stocks drop, which matters more and more as you get older. And honestly, a ton of people who do really, really well just build their whole thing out of those 3. Some people use nothing but the first one for decades and do great. There's this famous, deliberately boring setup people call the 3-fund portfolio, and it's built on exactly this. Boring is the whole point. Boring is what actually wins over 30 years. So the takeaway here, you do not need 20 funds. 1 to 3, held for a really long time. The simple version isn't you settling for less. The simple version is the strategy. But there's one more thing that trips people up, and it's a big one. Where you hold these funds can matter just as much as which ones you actually pick. So here's what people with real money actually do, and it's totally legal and almost everyone watching can do it too. So an index fund in a regular brokerage account, it grows fine, but you get taxed along the way and then taxed again when you sell. so the tax guy takes a bite in a couple different spots. But that same exact fund sitting inside something like a 401k or an IRA, it can grow untaxed for decades. And in some cases, it comes out the other end completely, totally tax-free. So think of it like two identical seeds. You plant one outside, out in the open, and it gets hammered by frost every winter. The other one goes in a greenhouse. Same seed, wildly different harvest. The container is doing a huge amount of the work here. And over a few decades, that difference, just from the tax savings alone, it can be tens of thousands of dollars. Same fund, same market, same deposits, just a smarter thing wrapped around it. So the last takeaway, and this one's about order. Fill up the tax-advantaged accounts first, the 401k, the IRA, and then, once those are maxed out, go put money in a regular brokerage. The order matters way more than you'd think. All right, so let's circle all the way back to what I said at the very start, that you're probably losing money right now and you don't even know it. So here's the thing. The single greatest investor who has ever lived already figured out the fix. Warren Buffett made this famous bet, $1 million, that one boring index fund would beat a whole team of elite hedge fund managers over 10 years. The absolute best people on Wall Street, charging millions, running these insanely complicated strategies. And the index fund won. It wasn't even close. And here's the part that honestly kills me. You know what he told his own family to do with his money after he's gone? Put almost all of it in a cheap S&P 500 index fund and just leave it alone. So think about that. The smartest investor alive is basically telling you the answer is just keep it simple, cheap, broad, give it time. That's it. That is the entire secret the expensive industry would really rather you never caught on to. So here's your one thing for today. Go find the expense ratio on whatever you're invested in right now.